Welcome back to another Beyond the Stats video. It's been a few weeks.
Been a bit.
Been a nice little off-season break for teams. Just had the finals end recently. The Jaylen Brown finals MVP, which made Jason Tatum the first player in NBA history to lead his team in points, rebounds, and assists in the finals and win the finals and not get the award. So
And some interesting drama. I don't know how real it is. There's kind of, a lot of stuff being thrown all around there. One thing's for sure is Jaylen Brown steps up whenever Porzingis isn't really
right,
in
for
the
sure.
mix there. I mean, interesting dynamic.
Yeah, definitely. But we are getting close to the NBA draft.
Love this time of year.
Coming along this week on Wednesday. Not Thursday. Well, Wednesday and Thursday.
Wednesday and Thursday, right?
2-day draft this week, this year, which will be, I don't know.
Seems like it's not necessary.
Yeah, it seems like we're trying to draw it out. It realistically, it's the second round of the NBA draft, right? It's not like an NFL team where we have a bunch of players on a roster. It's a 15-man roster. And so, I don't know. You find some gems in the second round, but it's the second round.
Seems a little bit odd. I think it's more fun once the rounds are done. We start getting the players in and they interview and
Exactly.
and you kind of get to know them and get ready for summer league, and that whole thing now is a little bit elongated. I don't know.
Well, so are they going to invite people for the second day?
Is anybody going to be there?
Like is anyone? Are you going to have players there for the second day of the draft?
I didn't even think about that. That's odd. I wouldn't.
I wouldn't either. It just
gonna just have some media and
talk about the draft while it's going. Yeah, but we'll see what happens during the draft. I'm super curious to see what the Jazz do.
Yeah, I mean, we're hearing there's a very low percent that they will take all three picks, right? That there's going to be some moves, and this is a year where it looks like there's going to be a ton of moves in the draft, which will make Wednesday night super exciting.
Right.
Thursday night, Wednesday night will be fun. I'm getting my popcorn. I'm going to be watching for sure. So what do the Jazz do, right? Do we keep 10? Do we move some players? I mean, there have been some rumors floating around, and there was one recent within the last 2 days that somebody from Bleacher Report threw out there as far as Colin Sexton to the Heat for Duncan Robinson and I think a later round first.
Mm-hmm.
Similar size contracts. I think Colin Sexton is a little bit more than Duncan Robinson, but I don't know. Doesn't really blow my skirt up.
No. No.
And we think that Duncan Robinson is a nice player. We love how he moves.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Duncan Robinson. It's just unless you're planning on making more moves beyond that, it seems like a weird trade.
We don't need to move Colin Sexton just to create space on the roster. I think that he's a very good backup longer term, right? I would love to see it if we could get one of their young players like Jovic or something like that. If we could get him thrown in, even if we give him like a 29 or a 32, I'm down.
Right.
I'm down with that.
I completely agree.
Athletic, long, fits the time frame, even though Sexton also fits the time frame. So that's one of them that was thrown out there that I thought was kind of a little bit, doesn't quite do it. The'd have to be something else with it.
I think my biggest, what I'm interested about to see if they hold on to the 10th pick. Part of that comes from I don't love anybody at 10.
Well, there's really in this draft, there's really no franchise players, right? I mean, could somebody do it? Sure, but as far as looking right now, there are players that have some nice parts to their game, but nowhere near kind of the parts that the top tier players last year had, or the players next 2 years will have. As far as looking, so I kind of have settled on wanting kind of higher ceiling players. I would like to take a chance on some players that could be a little bit higher level. Even though I think like a player like, I think Devin Carter could come in and be like a Pajemski and contribute right away and be a tough, hard-nosed player. I mean, he's got a 6'9" wingspan, plays defense, shoots. He could be impactful more right away. But I personally, I would kind of prefer somebody more like Salon, if he's still around, Tijan Salon, the big, long Frenchman, or even the Nikola Topic.
Dude, I've heard rumors. So I've heard rumors that Topic could fall to 10, and on top of that, been hearing some talk of the Jazz being kind of interested in possibly moving Keontae to 2.
And something that's interesting that I found out kind of watching some podcasts is, so Nikola Topic had kind of 2 little injury spells for this season over in Serbia. And when he came back on the second one, they played him a lot off ball.
Right.
So he's not just primarily point guard, but Keontae, we know that he can play well off ball and on ball. And so that combination of the 2, I think, would fit.
I think it would fit
Even if
really
he has to
well.
come in and sit out for a whole year, right? That's fine.
What's funny is, and I don't know if it's because he's a white European point guard, but he kind of, his play style reminds me a little bit of like a bigger, because of his size, a bigger kind of Ricky Rubio.
Seems to have that savvy to him, and he
But-
goes
but-
to the hole
but
very strong like
that-
Rubio did.
He goes to the hole very strong, kind of has that European style of ball handling and passing and stuff like that you've seen a lot with like Jokic and those kind of guys. That's kind of what he reminds me of, and I mean, that's not a bad guy to have next to Keontae and Markkanen and those
Right.
kind of guys.
Right, that's somebody who I think would fit in his upside. You know, that's assuming that he comes back and the injury is, handled and
Right.
however long it takes. Could be really high level. Now, there was some disappointment that his wingspan wasn't as big as it had kind of been projected to be. You know, they say that he has negative wingspan, I guess 6'6" with like a 6'5" wingspan.
Okay.
Whereas some people were hoping that it was like 7 feet. I don't
So
know.
same, Christian Brown had the same problem,
Yeah. And so there are some things, that kind of came back from
which is probably why he's falling
the European Combine. He's falling because of that and the injury, right?
and the injury.
But I think that his potential is high end enough. That's kind of what I'm hoping for.
I truthfully, if Topic falls to 10, I'd be shocked if we don't take him. He's one of the few guys that, like, if they went to 10, I'd be very happy with. I mean, we keep getting projected. What's his name? Cody Williams.
Yeah.
I hate Cody Williams. There's not, to me, there's really nothing about watching his game where I'm like, this dude's gonna come in and be an impactful player.
So I watched a couple of his games.
Beyond hoping he's his brother at some point.
I watched a couple of his games early in the season. Now he has the measurables, right? 6'8" with big wide wingspan. I can't remember exactly what it was, but big long athlete, not super explosive. His touch was quite good when I watched him early in the season.
Mm-hmm.
And he had an injury and then came back later in the season, and he kind of seemed like he was a little bit tentative, a little bit timid. Still hit some shots. Every once in a while, you'll see a glimpse of him going by somebody pretty effortlessly. There are, like with a lot of the draftees, a lot of the players in this draft, there are some real holes that are missing there, and you hope that it fills in and he plays nicely, right?
Right.
Who knows if we end up with him? What could be really interesting is, what if he's available at 12 with OKC, with his brother playing for OKC? And what if they don't take him? What would they? There's drama there,
right?
There's things like that in this draft, but I'm not. He's not real high on my list. I know that he could come in and I would cheer for him just as much as anybody else, but have concerns about him. He doesn't seem like as high a potential player. I would like us to draft 1 or 2 players in this draft, and I still think that we need another year of talent acquisition. I can't get away from that in my mind. Let me just kind of pitch on where my opinion's at. So it doesn't seem like we have enough talent of young players to where we're like, okay, we are talent rich. Even with players from this draft, let's assume that we hit on 1 player for this draft. Let's assume that, right? There's a chance that we hit on all 3 last year, which is fantastic against the odds. I still feel like we need to finish in the bottom 5 of the league this next year, even though it will be very painful to watch, and so that we can get in the top 5 pick for the 2025 draft. There are what looks like to be about 5 franchise players for right now in that draft that would be very good for us. And you say, you don't know where you'll end, because of the lottery and stuff like that. I think there are enough franchise level players in this next draft that it makes sense, and that's when we can then start to acquire bigger names. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
we've talked about this before, kind of several times leading up to the draft. I'm at a point where it's like, if we're going to do that, trade Larry Markkinen. If we're going to do that, trade Larry Markkinen and fully don't sit around in this kind of mode. Part of that is because realistically, with Larry Markkinen playing, we're too good to be in that range.
It's true.
And part of it is, if we're going to do that again, the dude deserves to be on a team that is building the right way in his time frame. I think you end up wasting his prime by doing that. We've done that a tiny bit, but I think we're going right into it. Now you start waiting another year, and then maybe another year to let that franchise player develop and stuff like that.
It pushes it back one more year for sure.
If we do that, if that's the route we go, then fine. I'm as big of a Cooper Flag fan as anybody, but as much as I would hate it, in my opinion, you trade Larry Markkinen. That's kind of where I'm at with that.
That might have to come with it. It's true. I just don't know if we are talent rich enough, and that's what we'll find out as we get into this year and the next year's draft, if we're talent rich enough to really have a strong base and then make a run at it, so that we can plug in a couple of veterans with it and really make a run.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my question, and that's why I've come to that conclusion.
Now, can we make some moves and some trades and stuff like that and start to make that happen by trading to teams who need veteran presence right now, kind of thing, and trade Jordan Clarkson and maybe even Colin Sexton and those kind of things, and start then develop things. That could be a route that we do that as well.
Right. At that point, I mean, if we bring in talented vets, there's no way we'll be low enough in the league to get a decent draft pick.
I think we have enough draft picks and assets to where if we wanted to put together that team, I think we can.
I don't know. Our draft picks are a lot of Timberwolves picks and Cavaliers picks, right? The one that does have value, and it seems like it might be at the right time of an implosion, would be the Lakers 2027 pick.
Right.
This top 4 protected. So it'll be interesting to see. I just can't get my mind around, do we have enough talent to really make that move? Now, it would be much more fun for us to make moves right now in this offseason and start winning right now. That would be a blast, and I would enjoy it. I just don't know if that would be making the move too soon before we have enough, young studs in the stable.
I honestly think that question can't be answered until you see the jump that Taylor Hendricks and Keontae George both make.
Right. That's part of it.
Now, I think if we are summer league, training camp, first couple weeks of the season, and it looks like they really haven't taken that step that you expect them to take, I truthfully at that point then would be fully 100% in, because then it's like, well, shit.
Yeah.
Now, if they come out and take that next jump, I think then at that point and it may come with losses, but you really let those guys just kind of play and
Right.
develop and learn, and that may come at the fact of we either lose and end up in the bottom fact, or we may just be too good with them to be there, and we kind of are in that middle awkward ground for another year.
Right. And that's kind of in the last 2 years, even though I thought that last year our preseason was absolutely horrendous with getting the team prepared. I mean,
it was bad.
I mean, we can talk about, what level is our coach, what level are we at there? But the preseason, the start of the season was obviously horrible. The team was not ready and prepared. But the coach was good enough that by the time we got to the middle of the season, we had fought and battled into, the play-in spot, for the playoffs, and you got to tip your hat to that part. So, but that kind of puts us in the old NBA purgatory we talked about, of the middle ground of not good enough to get in the playoffs, not bad enough to get high-end draft picks. So, we're entering an interesting week. I'm super excited about the draft to see what moves we make or don't make.
Right.
Because when you watch like Danny Ainge's interview, he's like, we're going to go all in as an organization and try and find high-end players. And if we don't, then we'll have to pivot. Well, no kidding. Or you hear Tony Jones, he says, don't be surprised
Buy
if the
anything.
Utah Jazz go and find super high-level players or find mid-level players or don't do anything, don't be surprised. So, and we know that the Utah Jazz, they run an airtight ship, right? If you're hearing rumors that are supposedly coming out of the Jazz, it's misdirection.
Usually it's not.
It's not real. Maybe if you hear something out of an agent out there, the other players' agents or other organizations, it's backed up, it has a little bit more to it. But otherwise, so it's fun to talk about as fans, right? And we get ready for what is coming up, but a lot of it is misdirection.
So, I mean, a big example of that is DeJounte Murray last year was kind of the talk back, that the Jazz were interested in him, and it's now come out that they really weren't. The Hawks offered DeJounte Murray to the Jazz, but part of the deal was for Keontae George, and the Jazz said no.
And that's probably similar to what's going on with Zach LaVine right now. Chicago is at a point where they are too far apart. They have to part ways somehow.
Yeah.
And he has a huge contract, a huge salary that involves, I think, 3 more years and a player option. And I think one thing that a lot of people aren't reporting on that I thought I saw on a website that has contracts is he has a 15% trade kicker on his contract. Anytime he gets traded, it's a 15% kicker on top of it.
Wow.
That sometimes teams put on there. So when Zach LaVine was all-star caliber, that contract was worth it. That was good.
Right.
He's kind of fallen off a little bit, and he and DeMar DeRozan don't really want to share the ball, and the passing isn't happening. So do I think Zach LaVine would make us a better team offensively? No question.
Right.
No question. He came out the gate. It checks some boxes. There are many others that it doesn't. And it involves a huge salary. But I think it's a situation where Chicago is contacting us, and Danny is seeing how hard he can fleece their organization.
Right.
If that happens at all. So
well, and kind of pivoting to some rumors that have come out and stuff like that is there's been a lot of talk of Lauri Markkanen. We talked about that a little bit. Is that the Warriors are interested in him, and these guys are interested in him. And of course you are. He's a perfect number 2,
of course,
on a team. He is the perfect number 2 for a team, and that's kind of what we've seen is we need to find that number 1 to pair with him, but they've come out and said Tony Jones' exact words were it would take a Godfather-like offer.
Yeah.
And recent rumors have been that we have received Gobert-esque trade offers for him, and they've turned them down. That shows you kind of their stance on Lauri Markkanen and our organization right now.
And some people will be like, that's way above his value in the league. I agree. But his value to us, we are going to make you overpay by miles and miles.
Yeah, it's that's part of what people forget when talking about trades as well is who that player, how he's going to be valued on the team he's getting traded to, and that player on what he's being valued right now by an organization, not necessarily being valued league-wide.
Yeah, very true. So and I don't think that he will move. But it'll be interesting to see if we make the moves this offseason and go, like we said, we'll be able to read what the team is doing. There's a lot of talk that John Collins is a piece that could move, and that makes sense because he's got the biggest contract. And for us to do business with teams that have players with bigger contracts, Collins would be a part of that.
Well, I think part of it too is we learned through the season that in our offense, in our team, Collins is strictly a 5
on offense,
which hurts our team defensively.
And then he can't play a 5 defensively against the real teams, right?
Yes, exactly. And so, does that mean trading for him was a bad idea? No,
it was good business.
It's still good business, and it's still even if we just let him walk, we didn't lose anything for him. And learn some things about our offense and the way things move. So at the end of the day, it was a good business deal. But now if he ends up being somebody that we use in part of a trade to go get a key piece, then that ends up being a great trade.
You have to have bigger contracts on your team to move to get other bigger contracts. That's how it works. So to pick him up, and it's funny because there were some Bulls podcasters that I was watching this last week, and they were kind of laughing about John Collins and what did you trade to get him? It was a double positive. They took Rudy Gay's contract off our hands.
They took Rudy Gay's contract and protected
we're still
protected second round draft pick. We already discussed today on the meaning of 99% of second round draft picks. You want to come out and throw out Draymond Green and Nikola Jokic and stuff like that. That is an anomaly. It doesn't happen.
So it's kind of funny. We really didn't have to trade or give up anything. They gave us John Collins and took an extra salary off our hands. Yes, it was expiring, but we weren't really wanting to have, Rudy Gay wasn't contributing at that point. He was nice in the locker room for some things, but yeah, so we love that John Collins is on the team, and I mean he averaged 15 and a half and 8.5 this year.
Yeah,
that's decent.
Which is last year. This time we talked about what's a successful year for John Collins.
That's true. We talked. And that was our very first show.
That is right where we landed.
And I think we said even less rebounds. I think that I think it was 16 and 7 or something like that.
Right around there was kind of where this is a successful year for picking him up.
Yeah, and
he hit basically right on the money
right.
of kind of what a successful year is. And that's why it wasn't a bad deal. Rudy Gay was averaging, 2 points a game, maybe, on like the horrible shooting numbers and stuff like that. So yeah.
It was great business. For anybody to say that they wouldn't have made that trade, you're out of your mind. It was great business to bring him on, and it's a bigger salary that we can move, and he contributes in his way. Now, I think that him being here kind of bumped Walker Kessler in their camp a little bit off the timing of what we had hoped that he was going to do.
Right.
But there's some issues there, obviously. So
which that's another guy whose name's been floated around with some rumors of could you see Walker Kessler move this offseason?
I mean, I've heard that both camps have got together and are good with each other and understanding the future and where we're going. I think that would we move him? I think we value him. I think it would take, a decent package to move him, but if it's to get somebody better and get that going. But I expect totally for him to be here and John Collins to move.
I do too.
Within the next year, up until the trade deadline, I'd say. That'd be my guess. And it makes it so that Walker Kessler is a little bit more of our future, and we have a lot of versatile defenders in there like Lowry, who can guard multiple positions, and Taylor Hendricks, and we'll see who comes in at the 2.
Or 1.
Right, or the 1.
Yeah, and so that's kind of the last thing I wanted to hit on is we touched on it a little bit. What are your thoughts on Keontae playing the 2? Now that we have a full year with him and stuff like that, and there's been some talk of possibly wanting to move him to the 2, maybe keep him at the 1. I don't know. Where do you feel that is with Keontae?
If he's moved to the 2, and that's assuming that we are wanting to be a high-level playoff team with whoever he's paired with.
Yes.
Whoever comes in at the 1, and understand that means some give and take back and forth the positions they play, would have to be a bigger, stronger, defensively strong 1, along with their playmaking abilities, so that we don't get hurt defensively with Keontae out there. If Keontae's expected to guard the highest level 2s in the league, we're in trouble.
Yes.
So that would that's why Topic is interesting. That's why a player like possibly, I don't think he's in our range, but you never know, the Stephon Castle piece would be interesting. There's talk that he wants to play a 1. We'll see. And I mean, Stephon Castle to me is a lot like a Sar Thompson light, kind of, with not as good of a shooter, but can really play defense, can play make, and does a lot of things well.
Right.
Even though I think Sar Thompson is a higher level prospect. So to me, it would take.
I think Asar Thompson it has the potential to be the best wing defender in the NBA.
I love Asar Thompson, so that's not a slide on Stephon Castle at all.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
But I think kind of similar archetype of skills and deficiencies. So to me, that's how I would answer that. That he could play the 2 and be effective, as well as sometimes bringing the ball up and playing the 1. But the other guard that he's paired with would have to make up for his deficiencies.
And that's kind of that's why I've been very off on moving him to the 2. I wanted him to play the 1. I think he's a great playmaker and stuff like that. I'm down to move him to the 2 when you're starting to talk about possibly having Topic slide to us. And having or drafting Castle or bringing on a guy like that. I that's where I completely agree. Is I think it could be great for him to move him to the 2. You have to have somebody next to him. I mean, you're looking at active NBA players and their play style and stuff like that. you have to have like a Drew Holiday, Marcus Smart, Lonzo Ball when he was healthy. You have to have one of these type of players next to him who can facilitate and operate with the ball, but also can be very good and make huge impacts on the game while Keontae can have the ball in his hands.
Chris Dunn, if he was 8 years younger.
Yes. No, exactly.
Yeah. And so he's another contract that I would expect us to sign in the offseason, right?
I freaking hope so.
We've got to. We have to.
With the way that guy not just improved as a player, and brought kind of his career back on track, but the way that dude was for our young players, the way he took Keontae under his wing and became a leader on this team. If you don't re-sign that guy, I don't understand what kind of culture we're trying to build.
Yeah.
He builds, he's a culture piece that you have to have in your locker room to build the correct type of culture.
100%. I'm on board with that. And I'm all for building the law firm of Dunn and Dunn with our later first round picks by drafting Ryan Dunn.
I've been talking about Ryan Dunn for a while.
Dunn.
I'm a fan of drafting Ryan Dunn. I would love to draft Ryan Dunn at the 29th, whatever I think is 29th pick that we have. Draft him there and throw him in the G League all year.
I'm saying,
don't ever see that dude on the NBA court.
What are your thoughts?
Throw him in the G League all year and just really develop that dude. And what kind of piece that guy can be in a year, 2 years,
a year or
stuff,
two, even
no pressure. Taylor Hendricks had that pressure, right? Being the 9th pick in the draft.
Yeah.
Ryan Dunn, you can just go sit in the G League with zero pressure beyond. Let's see what you can develop into.
No, I'm down with that. What are your thoughts for 32? I think that each of us have to go on the record of saying who we want for each of our draft picks. It's reasonable, right? I mean, you can't say I want Alex Sarr at 10. That's not going to happen. So what do you think at 32?
Trade.
That's true. I'm not sure that's an option in this scenario, but we probably do need to not draft all three. But what would you say?
So this is saying we draft Ryan Dunn at 29.
Sure.
If we don't draft Ryan Dunn at 29, 32. That's personally, I think his range is if you're drafting him higher than 25, 26, you're reaching on the guy.
Right.
But if he's sliding beyond that 35 range, I think he's gone too far. And so one of those two picks, I would love Ryan Dunn. I would just take him at 29. I don't even freaking at that point know who's in that draft range.
I really
like this point.
If we don't get Dunn, I would like a versatile wing, kind of like a Kevin McCullough type that played for Kansas. That was the 6'8". I mean, he was the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year his sophomore year. Decent amount of shooting. He kind of got injured towards the end of the year, but from what we're hearing, it was like a deep bone bruise, so it was not a surgery type of thing. Or like Johnny Furphy, also another Kansas guy for some reason. I'm on that team. But just a more athletic than you think, really good shooter out on the wing. So I would like to see, if we do it at 29 or 32, I'd like to see Furphy if we can, and then Ryan Dunn or McCullough, and I want to say Topic at 10.
Topic at 10 for me. I don't think both these guys slide. I think one of them does, but you kind of already mentioned him as well. I'm a huge fan of Castle.
Mm-hmm.
Castle's who I want in this draft. If we're taking anybody, I would probably say Castle at 10. I don't think he's going to fall to 10. I think Topic will. And so the three, realistically, if we keep the 10th pick, the three guys that I'm down is Topic, Castle, or Ron Holland.
Yeah, and Ron Holland has a whole bunch of upside as well. No question on his effort defensively, ahead of the game. Some question. I think that it's my opinion that Ron Holland and Buzelis really had their draft stock hurt by being on G League Ignite this year, because they were asked to just do ISO game, ISO after ISO after
I agree.
ISO, and really very little movement. And that hurt Buzelis' game. I'm high on Buzelis as well, but I don't think he'll fall that far. But Ron Holland would be intriguing as well, and that would check the athletic wing spot right then, and that would kind of maybe change our 29 and 32 if we draft those. So,
and that's where I've been. This 10th pick is I've been kind of all over with. I at first I was really interested in who's the white shooter?
Reed Shepherd?
No,
he is the white shooter.
It's not him.
Who else?
Played for Tennessee.
Oh, Dalton Connect.
Yeah, Dalton Connect. I wanted to say Dalton Kincaid, and I knew that was wrong.
I'll let it pass. Dalton Connect is also a white shooter.
I think he's arguably the best shooter in the draft.
He'll give you more immediate play right now too, for sure.
And so that is big part of why I was high on him kind of early on.
Mm-hmm.
I'm leaning now towards Topic and Castle because I really like the idea of playing Keontae at the 2 to where he's not having to focus as heavily as being a playmaker. Still is a playmaker, but not focusing as much at being a playmaker, but you're getting the right player next to him to allow him to play the 2.
Yeah, that's checking those boxes would be key. So, and that'll be fun. So I'm saying Topic, Furphy, and another athletic wing, either Dunn or McCullough. Those are my 3, I say.
That's fair. I'm saying, man, I want to say Topic as well, because I just don't think Castle's going to fall.
I'd be great with Salon as well.
But I'll say Castle.
I think that's cheating, but sure.
And then Ryan Dunn at one of them and trading the other.
There's a very good chance that we will not trade all 3. That's what they've said. So
keep all.
And 3. Then very good chance that we would not draft all 3.
You said trade.
I'm sure I screwed it up somehow, but I came around in the end. Totally redeemed myself. But the movement and all the trades in this draft is going to be super exciting. I'm stoked. There have been a few moves. OKC, moving.
Great move
for
both teams.
Yeah, for them and for the Bulls. That's a great move. OKC's got tough.
Yeah, I think if the Jazz start making moves, I think draft day you'll start to see the beginnings of that. If we don't start seeing stuff then I start to question if we're actually going to make really any moves. It also could start, first, second day of free agency, depending on who they're looking in there. Those are obviously your obvious 2 kind of trade move moments, but they say don't be shocked with anything the Jazz do. I'd be shocked and annoyed if we don't do anything.
That would be an odd one, especially with this offseason being the huge transition to the new salary cap and the new structure and all that. That would be very
We've
shocking.
set it up perfectly to be one of the more aggressive teams.
That's why in every salary cap trade scenario we're mentioned, just because we're prepared for it, and the front office has done a good job of that. So so we're planning on doing another show Wednesday night after the first round.
Yes.
And that'll be fun, and hopefully we have some more answers. I'm stoked.
Yes. And then obviously things are ramping up in the offseason. We're starting to get really close to a lot more things. We'll be a lot more active just in general on the channel now that the offseason is in full effect. The playoffs, there really wasn't much to hit on. There was a couple rumors here and there, but Jazz aren't in the playoffs. There really wasn't a whole lot to talk about beyond that. And so now that we're coming up on draft, going to have young players, free agency, summer league, all this stuff. We're going to be attending summer league for the first day.
Yeah.
And so we'll film for summer league, but probably late that night, and which we normally get the videos out late anyway. And so expect to see a lot more of us coming up in the next few weeks.
For sure.
Get ready for the regular season.
Hit us in the comments. Let us know what you think of the scenarios and the talk here, and that's what we enjoy. So
yep, exactly. Who are you hoping or expecting to see in the draft for the Jazz? Kind of what's your dream players at each position or dream moves to be made during the draft? But
Absolutely.
either way, we'll see you guys Wednesday. Thanks.